It's actually quite good that I'm following Andy, because the workshop which I'm talking about in Ghana is linked in with a lot of the same themes that they've been working with in India for much longer, and I'm going to be talking about the first workshop ASF ran in Ghana in 2011 with Ben and Sophie, you can see there. What we wanted to do in Ghana was, because we had an interest from each of us working there previously and having spent a lot of time there, and noticing, as many others had, that it was an increasingly economically expanding country, globalizing country, and had many of the same issues that Andy was talking about in India, and increased urban populations, economic expansion, and this was being noted at the same time by these two reports that came out in 2011 from Human Habitat, which were talking about housing conditions and the expanding urban populations in Ghana. And what we were very conscious of was taking a role within that, a very small scale, and looking at strategies for sustainable construction within that. And Ghana is a country with a heritage of formal as well as informal architecture and materials, particularly in compound houses and beautiful drawings of incredible buildings from the past. So we were sitting within this new context of these buildings of imported materials, which seem to satisfy aspirations of a globalizing community. Next. So we took a very tight focus, which was a project with our partner, Volunteer Projects West Africa, and their small rural initiatives on the edge of Accra. And this is the Green Ghana project that they set up, which was an economic project for employment in this village, and that narrowed the focus really from those things that I showed you before with the urban expansion to a rural setting, where we could look at traditions of construction, abundant materials, and small-scale strategies that we could suggest for approaches to sustainable architecture that were to do with upgrading traditional materials to something that could fill the aspirations of the larger buildings. So we started off with research, which had to address the fact that a lot of the people on the workshop had only been on the continent for a few days at that point. So they were working with the people in the village very directly to try and understand what was going on, and building up a body of research which looked at materials, construction, family structures, house and household structures, and also the way that people saw their houses. And we very quickly moved on to material research, looking at the abundant, what was around earth, bamboo, etc., similar to what Andy was talking about. And we worked from first principles with this as a learning tool for the people in the workshop. So we tested the materials, we looked at different combinations of glass and earth and compressed earth and wetted earth, and we really went back to the basics. And then we looked at some people who were already trying to upgrade these materials to modern standard construction materials. So this is a bamboo treatment plant that we visited for a weekend, and we worked with them hands-on, trying to get people interested in what these materials could be in a very physical way. In the middle of the workshop, we ran this symposium in Accra, which brought together lots of other people who were doing research into these areas, about roughly equal Ghanaian and African speakers to people who'd come in from outside and international organisations working in Ghana. And we tried to synthesise all that stuff we'd got, hands-on and second-hand knowledge, into a design approach, to design a prototype structure for that Green Ghana project. So we started out on site with a very ambitious brief to build a seed bank for this moringa plantation. And we used all the technologies that we'd looked at from the previous week, from earthed bamboo, structural bamboo, woven bamboo in adobe, rammed earth. And we weren't just building on, I think, the knowledge that we picked up from research and from the symposium. We were also building on the knowledge of the participants, particularly a group of people who came from the Ethiopian Architectural Association, who had done similar research themselves and were interested in this type of thing. So construction progressed very rapidly, and we had 4 days, and we got a little bit further than you can see in this photograph, and the building was subsequently finished by one of the facilitators from Architecture Sans Frontières who stayed on afterwards, and finished it with local craftsmen. And the lessons of this workshop really were that the outcomes in some ways were unexpected. So the building was never intended to be a gift building. The building is a kind of a report of what we did during the 2 weeks. And other outcomes were not planned. So one of the groups of participants went on, instead of constructing during the final few days, to write this maintenance book for existing houses, which came as a result of that period of research and realising that what they thought was needed was not a strategy for new buildings, but a strategy for addressing the problems with existing buildings. And also network building. And one of the most important things was bringing together all those people in that symposium that had not really talked to each other, who were doing similar work. So we realised that we were overlapping with work that was already been being done, and we wanted to bring lots of those people together, and they're now talking to each other, and there's a movement growing, and we're going to go back and do another thing. And we also helped our local partner to move on to other projects. So they're working on a street library project, which the evidence from this workshop helped get the funding for, and they're looking at picking up some of the techniques developed in the workshop for that as well.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.